Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks a lot for taking a little time to check the video out. Today we're going to be talking about the BFL at Lake of the Ozarks yesterday that I fished, and I just was looking through the standings, and 69 boaters zeroed in that tournament. Almost 70 boaters, which is a third of the field. I think there was like 220 anglers in the field. And sort of have a little discussion on what that means, the bigger picture here. I think you guys might find it interesting. Before we get started, guys, just a weekly reminder. I'd like to invite everybody to swing by fishthemoment.com. I'll include the link in the description and check out our spring lake map breakdowns. Now, if you're not familiar with these are breakdowns we do of lakes all across the country, and we give 40 GPS waypoints in there, and we give tips and advice on how to approach and how to fish each waypoint. And then you can duplicate it around the lake for yourself. So it's a great way to learn more about a lake you want to learn more about, even if you fish it or if you don't fish it. And if our maps aren't on the list, you can book a virtual lesson with me, and I can go over the lake you want to check it out on Navionics and Google Earth, and give you guys some good information on that. So I'll include the Fish the Moment link in the description. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, BFL yesterday. Now, Here's the situation with it. It took 26 pounds to win the tournament. And I think the guy that won the tournament by over almost 8 pounds. But again, almost 70 people did not catch one keeper bass the whole tournament. And I think that is indicative of a larger discussion that we need to have on the quality of fishing in our lakes. It doesn't have anything to do with the angler talent, because, for example, Marcus Sequoia is arguably one of the top Lake of the Ozarks anglers. I mean, the guy's won everything up there. He's a hammer on Lake of the Ozarks, and he's zeroed. So doesn't really have anything to do with the quality of the anglers. Good anglers still zeroed. What it does have to say is about the overall productivity and health of a fishery. Now, it isn't just Lake of the Ozarks that we're talking about. If you look at any lake across the country that you go to, with the exception of a lake maybe like Lake St. Clair or some smallmouth lakes up north, normally what you have is you've got 2 or 3% of the guys really catch them, and then everybody else catches them mediocre, and then there's always 25% of the field that just does not catch them. I mean, if you look at the Bassmaster Elite Series on Lake Fork last year, which everybody thinks Lake Fork's one of the greatest lakes in the country, there were still a lot of dudes that caught, like a lot of pros, Elite Series pros, that caught like 3 or 4 pounds for the whole tournament on Lake Fork. So what does this mean actually? And here's what it means. The fishing in our lakes across the country is tougher than they've ever been. And guys, do not get fooled. When somebody says, okay, weights are big, what are you talking about, Randy? It took such and such stuff to win tournaments. Guys, that doesn't make any difference. The measure of a fishery, in my opinion, is not the top weights. That's sort of a freak deal. Guys that find something and they hit the timing just right. But the measure of the quality of a fishery is how the bottom half of the field does, what they weigh in. So a lake, you take a lake like, we fished that Toyota Series at Grand Lake last week, the Lake of the Ozarks tournament this week. And like I said, the bottom 25% of the field zeroed in both of those tournaments. You're talking about guys that are hammers, that are above average bass anglers, fished for 8 hours and could not catch one keeper bass. Now, one of the illusions about our fisheries across this country is that the fisheries are healthy and everything's good. That's not the case, guys. The fishing in the United States and every lake across this country is tougher than they've ever been, and the bass populations are lower than they've ever been. We have an illusion of good fisheries because we have such technologically advanced equipment that there's no stone left unturned. I mean, our rod and reel technology, our lure technology, our boat, trolling motor, electronics, everything like that has made people so good at catching the available fish that it doesn't show really how bad the fisheries are. Now, let's take, for example, let me throw this scenario out there. Back when I was a kid and I was fishing Grand Lake and Table Rock Lake. This was back in the early 70s. My dad was, he bass fished occasionally. He didn't bass fish a lot. So he didn't really know a lot about bass fishing, even though he bass fished with him and a friend of his. They'd go, a couple times a month down at Table Rock or Grand Lake. And what they would fish, and I was with them on a lot of these trips, they would fish like the old Whopper Stopper Hellbender, a white Hellbender with black ribs on it with a metal lip on the thing. And guys, you can't believe the bags of fish that they caught. And they were throwing it on spinning rods. They didn't, Dad and friends and friend he went with, they didn't know much about fishing, but they just go down there and just pull up on a bank and go down the bank with a white Hellbender. And I've got pictures of 7, 8, and 9 pounders they caught all the time. If I would give you guys right now a white Hellbender and take you down to Table Rock Lake or Grand Lake, I would probably bet you $100 that you could fish all week on either one of those lakes and not get one bite with a white Hellbender. That is what is the product of the reduction in the amount of bass in the lake. Another thing about this is one of my friends, I talked about this a little bit last week, but one of my friends that has lived on Grand Lake, he's actually lived on the lake for almost 50 years, and he's won a ton of tournaments on Grand Lake, and he's just a hammer on the lake. And at the Grand Lake tournament last week, he finished in the 20 or 21st or something like that. And he made a comment that everybody was saying how tough the fishing was in that tournament. And he said, no, it's not that the fishing's tough. He said, the fish just aren't here. Grand Lake does not have the bass anymore that it used to. And it's the same with Lake of the Ozarks. It's, if Lake of the Ozarks in any other time frame, you've got water temperatures 50 degrees, it's the third week of March, there's no reason that 70 highly skilled bass anglers should go out there all day long and never catch a single bass. So that being said, I mean, it's the same all across the country. Our fisheries we're under this illusion, and we stick our head in the sand. People saying, oh, fishing's great and fisheries never been healthier. I call BS on that, guys. I call BS, and I call out again, it's the illusion created by technology. What can you do about it? That's the thing. First of all, the problem that we have is the lake, the ability of our reservoirs to support the amount of fishing pressure that they get. They can't keep up with it. When I was at Lake of the Ozarks today, we had 220 boats in the BFL tournament. And when I was running up the lake, I was running like 40 miles up the lake. I started noticing there's a ton of boats running to me. So there was another tournament up the lake coming down the way I was going. And then, you couldn't get away from a boat. It didn't matter where you were on the lake. The weekend guys out there, the point of which is we have gotten to the point where we love fishing so much, and tournaments are not regulated at all. And it has a severe impact on our fisheries, that fishing pressure. Now, people talk about conservation efforts and restocking and habitat, and that's all fine and good, guys, but habitat and restocking can simply not keep up with the amount of fishing pressure we have. Make no mistake about it, guys, there is a ton of bass fishermen out there that still keep and eat bass. Most guys that watch, not most guys, but a lot of guys that watch this channel, everybody practices catch and release because we know that we've got to. If we want to have fish to catch in the future, we have got to release those bass. But guys, I'm telling you right now, there's more people than you realize that put a knife to them when they catch them. They have this mentality that if they're going to go to the lake and spend all this money on gas, they're going to have something to show for it. And when you have the meat hunters like that getting more educated and highly skilled, it has a tremendous impact on the fisheries. And then you take the fact that delayed mortality from tournaments, the bass tournaments we have, the increasing amount of barotrauma deaths that bass are suffering because of live scope now, people catching them deeper all the time. And you can look to have a lot more tournaments like we saw today where 70 guys zeroed in the tournament. So, from that standpoint, we've got a lot of tough decisions to make. I mean, we have to continue with the habitat and restocking, especially the restocking. And the habitat has got to be quality habitat. You can't just throw a bunch of Christmas trees in a lake and call it good. There's got to be different types, a diverse amount of habitat. There's got to be habitat that is inaccessible to fishermen and accessible to fishermen. There's got to be some type of reins put in on the amount of tournaments. I've talked about this before, and people call me, they say I'm being a hypocrite because I fish tournaments. I've always advocated it my entire career to have stricter regulations on tournaments. So what I'm talking about that, instead of the Corps of Engineers or whoever the lake authority is allowing to have 3 and 4 tournaments a weekend, they just need to say, guys, you can have 1 tournament per weekend on this lake, and you're going to have to stagger it out. And you're going to have to stagger it out through different times of the year. You cannot have all these major tournaments piled up on every weekend on the lake. And on top of that, there's a safety issue. But like at Lake of the Ozarks today, guys, in practice, I went down to the lower end of the lake, and every cove you pulled into, there was a boat. And then the next day, I ran 40 miles up the river thinking I could get away from them. That wasn't the case. There were boats in every cove you go to up there. I mean, there were people on every secondary point. There were spoonbillers trolling everywhere out. You had to dodge them when you're running down the lake. Weekend dudes out there, crappie fishermen, live scoping everywhere in the creeks. And we've gotten to the point where we just love the sport to death. So it doesn't look like we're going to be building any more lakes anymore. So we're going to have to take care of what we have. And the main thing about it, guys, is people have got to make some tough decisions, because one of the problems that you have is, and I've seen this on my own channels, like anytime that you try to bring to light some conservation efforts and sustainability issues that I'm talking about here, there's a segment of the people that get offended and somehow think their rights are being taken away from them. And, God forbid that you have any type of government regulating the tournaments on there. They think that that's like the worst thing in the world. But the problem is that the private sector does not have the discipline to do what it takes to ensure the sustainability of our fishery. And if we want to have quality fishing in the future, where we don't have a third of these tournament fields zeroing, and where average dudes that go fishing can't ever catch one because it's so hard to catch them. It's so hard for highly skilled tournament anglers to catch one, let alone just somebody that's starting out in the sport. We've got to make some tough decisions and start putting the future and the quality and the sustainability of our fisheries at the forefront. So, like I said, we all know what needs to be done. It's just getting it done, and I don't see a lot of motivation from the people, the powers that be out there to do that. The tournament organizations don't seem to have any interest in it. They're motivated by money to a large extent. A lot of the state conservation departments, I've talked to them, and they have the misguided perception that the fish they see them as like some inanimate resource that people have got to be able to harvest. And I don't think what people take into account is as far as the amount of fishing pressure that's on these lakes. I mean, I see it firsthand, and you guys do too. I mean, all you guys that fish out there know what I'm talking about. All you dudes out there that fish the Lake of the Ozarks, unless you're, one of the 2% of anglers up there that just have got that lake dialed in, and you're a hammer on the lake, you know how hard it is to go up there and catch them every day, every single day. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to light, guys. I thought that was sort of like a huge warning bell that we had a third of the field zeroed yesterday in the 3rd week of March, which is supposed to be like the best time to fish up there. And just wanted to bring that up. So shoot me some comments. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll talk later.